Of all the videos in the world, they had to click on to mine.
The 40s was a clamorous decade, with World War II happening. Yet Hollywood released groundbreaking films ranging from film noir, wartime influence, musicals, and international films. Technicolor flourished, creating a vibrant experience for audience. These 10 films are my picks that I feel defined the 1940s. The Lost Weekend. Before I begin to talk about this film, I think I should provide a disclaimer. The subject matter will discuss addiction, so if you're sensitive to this topic, maybe you should skip this one. A film noir about a man, Don, who is a recovering alcoholic. His brother leaves for the weekend with his girlfriend, leaving Don alone at the apartment. And even though this is the opportunity for Don to get his writing back on track, Don has trouble concentrating. I can definitely relate. Whenever I'm working on something, I have to be mentally focused. I think we all suffered from writer's block at one point, like doing school projects or doing an essay. There's so many distractions, and we wind up procrastinating.
That's why I didn't go away that weekend, see? So I can be all alone up there and sit down on my typewriter. This time I'm going to do it, Nat. I'm going to do it.
Maybe you will.
Thank you, Nat. Am I all paid up?
Yes, Mr. Blenheim.
Goodbye, Nat. I'm going home. This time I've got it. I'm going to write.
Don deals with stress the only way he knows how. He uses the money for the cleaning lady to buy booze. His girlfriend Helen is worried about him and tries her best to get him to stop drinking. It's a film about someone struggling with addiction and how it affects the people around them. He ignores the help from his loved ones. He uses manipulation to get what he wants. He does just about anything to get money. He even resorts to stealing at one point.
Don't you show your face in here again, ever. Mike!
Mike!
Take him out of here. Somebody stole a purse. Everybody! Somebody stole
I assure you I'm not a thief! I'm not a thief!
Somebody came and...
It's tragic to see a character spiral out of control. Despite its subject matter, it won Ray Millard Best Actor Award. The film was featured in the Cannes Film Festival and was a huge box office success. Rope. Rope is about two men who commit murder for the thrill. The two killers, Brandon and Philip, have different reactions of what they just done.
I've always thought it was out of character for David to drink anything as corrupt as whiskey.
Out of character for him to be murdered, too.
Yes, wasn't it?
Brandon is so arrogant, and even finds it amusing that they just killed somebody. And Philip, he's such a nervous wreck that throughout the film, you think he's gonna crack. Then the men are hosting a dinner party in the same room where the murder took place. They hide the body in the trunk, and as the guests are enjoying themselves, we, the audience, are sitting at the edge of our seat, wondering when and who, and if someone will discover the body.
I hope David gets here soon.
Yes, where is David?
I haven't the faintest idea, but he's so late, Mr. Kentley's getting annoyed.
One of the guests, Rupert Kendall, played by James Stewart, suspects that something is up. And before we know it, the three men are playing a cat and mouse game.
Mrs. Wilson, please serve the guests. Don't lecture them.
We did get up on the wrong side of the bed, didn't we?
Rope is based off a stage play with the same name by Patrick Hamilton, which is ironic because Alfred Hitchcock filmed it like a stage play, filming long takes. I believe there was a total of 10 shots, and for an 80-minute film, that's really impressive. Actors had to perform flawlessly, like they were on a stage. Because the camera would eventually run out of film, they had to zoom in on a prop or a person in order to make it appear one take. There were moments where the camera switches, like a shot from James Stewart's face while someone else is speaking. This was called a reaction shot. Rope is one of my favorite Hitchcock films, with its storyline and unique film techniques. Yankee Doodle Dandy. A biographical film, George M. Cohan, who was a legendary showman in America. The film starts with George being invited to the White House to visit the President of the United States. There, George tells his story going back to his childhood. He was introduced to singing, dancing, and performing at an early age. We see him grow up into a man and eventually go off on his own.
You'd see the act split up, George, but if you think so...
Oh, sure. You can play all that stuff around Chicago for Sullivan. The money's good and the jumps are short.
It's a good idea. You get tired resting too long.
But it won't be the same going back on the road without you, Georgie.
Then war arises, and George tries to enlist. But the only thing he knows how to do is sing and dance, and he's over the age limit for men to enlist. With everyone doing their part in the war, George finds a way to use his skills to help his country. It's very exciting to see that theater played a part during the war, in a positive way, of course. Yes, the film is a musical, but don't let that put you off. Yes, there is songs, and they do play part of the storyline. We see George working on a song, and the scene translates into him being on stage performing that same song.
Everybody sing!
I gotta admit, that was pretty damn epic. The film doesn't depict Cohan's life exactly, but you know what? It's a really fun film. One Body Too Many. A horror comedy with a pretty complicated storyline. After a wealthy man kicks the bucket, his relatives show up to his mansion for the will hearing. Turns out he had a love for astronomy and wants to be buried with the stars. He does this by hiring construction workers to build a glass vault.
And the last of my living relatives.
Straight away, we see that the relatives are rich snobs, and they're only there to receive their inheritance.
Should any of you leave the grounds before I am safely interred in my vault, you will forfeit all rights to your legacies. I know you will find it difficult to live together, even for a few days, but this is my wish. So with these last words, I leave you to your squabbling, which, fortunately, I won't be able to hear.
Of all the insulting and insane ideas.
But to get their inheritance and hear the second half of the will, they must stay within the mansion until construction is completed. If the deceased is buried in the ground, the will automatically be reversed, meaning the ones who originally received the most amount of money will now get the least, and the ones who got the least amount of money will now receive the most amount. We are introduced to an insurance salesman, Albert L. Toddle? Yeah, he's got a weird name. Anyway, Mr. Toddle, that's good, I'm gonna call him Al. So, Al shows up, and he's mistaken for the private detective hired to watch over the dead body. So, long story short, Al gets roped in. From there, he gets into situations more ridiculous than the last. That's where the comedy comes from. The actor, Jack Haley, is good at playing comedic characters without being too over the top.
When they reappeared, they held a handkerchief to jam down his throat and snuff the breath from his lungs before he could cry out.
Bela Lugosi is also in this film, though he only gets a minor role as the butler.
I brewed some coffee, sir, but I can't find anyone in the library.
One Body Too Many, one of the earliest comedy horrors to ever be made. It doesn't rely on gross-out humor or being offensive. If you like comedy and horror, then this is the film for you. So give it a watch, if you haven't already. The best years of our lives. The 40s were big on war movies, and usually they were about during the war or the events before the war. But we don't usually see what happens after the war ended. And that's what this film focuses on.
Boy, oh boy, hey, look at that.
3 men are flying together in a plane, They're heading home now that the war is over. The men, Homer, Fred, and Al, all happen to live in the same town. Al, the older of the three, is returning home to his wife and grown-up children. Fred is going back to meet his wife, whom he married during the war. And Homer, who lost both his hands, is excited to see his family and fiancé again. We see these three individuals are readjusting back to society. Al turns to drinking. Fred's marriage with his wife becomes sour now that the excitement of the war is over, and Homer has to adjust by using mechanical hooks.
You want to see how the hooks work? You want to see the freak? All right, I'll show you.
We see the effects of those who return from the war, and many of them have suffered post-traumatic stress disorder as a result. Upon release, the film received positive reviews, New Times calling it a masterpiece, and swept the Academy Awards. And while it does address the hardships of the returning soldiers, the film leaves you feeling hopeful. That as long as they have support of their loved ones, there is hope for healing. The Wolfman. Following in his father's footsteps, Lon Chaney Jr. stars as a horror icon. He plays Larry, who arrives in a small town to attend his brother's funeral.
Father, I'm sorry about John. Your brother's death was a blow to all of us.
Right away, he feels out of place. We're then introduced to a group of traveling Romani fortune tellers. And look who we got here. Bela Lugosi. He plays the werewolf that attacks Larry one night.
Master Larry, what's happened?
He was bitten by a wolf.
A wolf? Yeah, he did.
A fortune teller warns Larry that the werewolf's curse is now passed on to him. And on the night of a full moon, he will turn into a werewolf.
Go now. And heaven help you.
The words of the fortune lady still bring chills to my spine. Even before the character is transformed into a werewolf, we feel the character's dread. The makeup design is once again done by Jack Pierce, who did the makeup for the Frankenstein monster. And although we don't see the full body transformation, it's still very impressive. Lon Chaney Jr. had to remain still as they applied the hair on his legs for an extended period of time. And when we do see him transform back into human form, a dissolve of the makeup as they remove it, while filming variety stages in between. I love the relationship between Larry and his father. He doesn't want to lose another son, but at the same time, he has a hard time believing in curses. Lon Chaney Jr. would go on to play the Wolfman again in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. The Wolfman may not have been the first werewolf movie to ever come out, but it's definitely one of the best. It's a Wonderful Life. Yes, it's a Christmas film, but the first half is a drama. It's about a man named George, played by the legendary James Stewart.
You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down. Hey, that's a pretty good idea.
We see that George has big dreams to see the world, and he wants to get away from the small town he's lived all his life. George's father runs a bank, and even though George wasn't planning on taking over the bank, but through some realistic circumstances, he ends up taking over. And every time George gets a chance to go somewhere, something always comes up at the last minute. You really feel bad for the character and understand his frustration. I'm sure we've all felt trapped at one point. Even though George marries the woman of his dreams and has very charming children and a house full of love, one Christmas Eve, he lashes out and runs away. He ends up saving a man, Clarence, who knows about George.
AS2, what's that AS2?
Angel, second class.
Clarence is an angel sent down to help George, and he shows George what life would have been like if he was never born. We see how one man changed the lives of so many people. Every event, good and bad, had some effect on others.
Hello, Bedford Falls!
The film was released after the war and had mixed reviews. Some saying it was a wonderful film that mixes humor and the excitement of life. Some compared it to Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. I personally loved the film. James Stewart is charming, even though this was around the time he got back from the war. There was a scene where he actually broke down. I first watched this film with my dad around the holidays, which I think made the experience extra special.
My wild Irish road. I'm all right. Oh, sweetie.
If you haven't seen this classic yet, give it a watch this Christmas.
That's right. That's right.
Bambi. When I found out that Bambi was made in the 40s, I couldn't believe it. A female deer has given birth to the young prince.
I think I'll call him Bambi.
His father is the great prince of the forest. We watch Bambi grow up, making friends. His 3 closest friends are a rabbit named Thumper, a skunk named Flower, and another young deer.
That's little Feline.
He's kind of bashful, isn't he, Mama?
It's hard to talk about the film without mentioning this scene. Let's be honest, it's not just the death itself that's tragic. It's the fact that we got to know Bambi's mom. She was her son's caregiver, his protector, his best friend, and teacher. And it's really sad when a child loses a parent at such a tender age. Bambi is taken in by his father. By spring, Bambi is all grown up. The animation of this film is beautiful. So much detail was put into this film. Disney hired a painter of animals, and when it came to animating the animals, the animation team visited the Los Angeles Zoo to capture movement of the animals. Even the people who animated the deers in Snow White were part of the team. I didn't watch this film a lot as a kid, even though I owned it on VHS. I find myself appreciating this film more now than I did back then. Bambi reminds me of myself as a kid, just playing around with friends, laughing and discovering new things. Those small moments are very precious the more you look back on them. I love this film. I think it's definitely underappreciated. My brother, however, says he hates the film. He says it's too sad and too depressing, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if other people felt that way too. Bambi manages to be both a slice of life and coming-to-age drama film aimed for kids. But honestly, if a film is done well, children can understand and appreciate this sort of story. The Great Dictator. Charlie Chaplin is back, and this time he plays 2 characters in this 1940s film, the Jewish barber and the dictator, Adenoid Hickel. The barber character ends up in a plane accident which causes him to have amnesia. He later joins a rebellion group against the dictator. The film is a satire of politics during World War II. This caused major controversy, banning the film. Even the character Adenoid Hickel is a parody of Adolf Hitler and pokes fun of how the dictator spoke.
Baloney.
Charlie Chaplin uses physical comedy, but this time he has dialogue. I was so used to seeing Charlie Chaplin being the tramp, not uttering a single word. So it was kind of weird hearing him speak. The film has its funny moments while addressing the war. The Great Dictator is celebrated for having the greatest monologue in any film.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business.
It's not just Charlie Chaplin's delivery, but the message it's trying to convey that still holds so much meaning. It's a scene that doesn't need music. The weight of Charlie Chaplin's words hits listeners and keeps us hopeful that someday people won't have to fight anymore. We can all live together in a peaceful world. If there's any film that should be remembered, it's The Great Dictator. Before I go to my number one pick, here are some honorable mentions. Alright, my number one top film from the 1940s is Casablanca. Humphrey Bogart was the heartthrob of the 40s.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
Unlike most actors that were over the top, Humphrey Bogart was very grounded.
Suppose you run your business and let me run mine.
His acting was settled, which made him unique. Here, he plays Rick, a club owner. The club is located in Casablanca, Morocco. The nightclub serves as a safe place for refugees, and refugees are trying to get back to the United States.
But think of all those poor refugees who must rot in this place if I didn't help them. Well, that's not so bad. Through ways of my own, I provide them with exit visas. For a price, Ugarte.
Rick was once in love with a woman named Elsa. The two of them were planning to flee, only for him to be stood up at the train station. On a rainy day, no less.
That's the last call, Mr. Richard. Do you hear me?
Elsa and her husband, Laszlo, enter the nightclub. They're both refugees and need letters in order to leave Casablanca. Rick is still bitter towards his former lover, but he's the only one who has the letters to help the couple escape.
Richard, dear, I'll go with you any place. We'll get on a train together and never stop.
Don't, Rick.
When they come to get me, Rick, I hope you'll be more of a help.
I'd stick my neck out for nobody.
We are given a very flawed character as our lead. With the war going on, Humphrey Bogart wasn't sure if audience wanted to see a romantic film. Luckily, Casablanca was a huge success. Audience needed something else at the time. This was considered to be Humphrey Bogart's greatest performance. And then there are the iconic lines.
Here's looking at you, kid.
But what about us?
We'll always have Paris.
It had the best storyline, good dialogue, and overall direction. And that's why it's my number one pick for the 1940s. And those were my picks. Let me know if you have any other recommendations or thoughts on these films. Check out my other videos, my top 10 films from the 1920s and the 1930s. Next video, we're jumping to the 50s. So in the meantime,
here's to looking at you folks. Oh, and stay classy. Don't worry, it's iced tea.